but I think we don't have that much names in this list. But because we have three sets of names here, so I will now use this Charles people as a first name. And then use the surname people as a last name. Probably we'll just stick to the 50 something names that we've gotten. I think that is enough. We don't necessarily need to create 100 names, even though it won't be bad. I think we can get at least 70 something. We can get at least 70 something. So this one now becomes the surname. And then it will also now become the first name here. It will also become the first name here. And then the first name will now become the last name there. So it's basically, I'm just trying to put together a list. And you have to get your own list though. Yeah. All right, so at least we have a list now. We have a list now, and I'm hoping that we won't have any conflicts. So I'm going to minimize this here and then come to the add user info. So I'll share this document with you. When you receive it and you want to populate it, you will only work on the first sheet. The rest of the sheets will take care of themselves. So when I paste the list here, I have the first name and then the last name as it is there. And I think it's 73. And then the OU, the child OU, remember that all the child OUs, we call them users. For the user account, we called all of them users. So this will still be maintained as users, and then you can drop down to this. And then finally, we have the primary OU. Now, I'm going to do this in a random order, but in a role environment, when you are given a list, you are going to be told the department where each of them is going to work. But because this is a test environment, we don't really have any order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give maybe the first 15 people to be in IT. Then the next will be in HR, maybe up to here. The next would be in finance, also maybe up to somewhere here. And then the rest are going to be in marketing because we need a lot of money. So the rest will be in marketing. Now you have to make sure that how your OUs are created and organized in your Active Directory, that is how you are going to create the users. So now when I come to the mass scripts creation sheet, you notice that the things have automatically populated in here. The things have automatically populated in here. So you see DS add user, common name, B Charles. So it created a name using the first initial of the first name and then the full last name, just as what we selected in our environment. And they are all going to be in an OU called users, and the parent OU is IT, the domain is Maverick, and the top level domain name is local, just as we have. So I think we don't have up to 100, so I'm going to delete the rest of them here. So if you get a job and you have to go and create accounts for 100 users whatsoever. But again, if you are good with Excel, you can alter this document to behave anyhow you want it. Maybe you don't want the names to be the first name dot the last name. You can you don't want the name to be the initial of the first name and the last name, and you want it to be first name dot last name. You can configure the Excel to behave like that. Because if you click on any of the lines, it gives you the concatenate left it gives you the script that was used. Add users info here, A71, and add users that, so it's there, so you can do it if you are good with Excel. Me, I don't know Excel. This thing you tell me to do, I can't help you. But if you are good with Excel, you can alter it in how you want. Then we have the save this as text file. So what we'll do is again here, I think we'll have to expand it up to about 74. Oh, 73. Yeah, I don't know if we add one more. No, so it's up to 73. All right. Now it says save this sheet as text file. Save this sheet as text file. So what you want to do is this. What you want to do is this. You will come to file. Please, this is the most important part of the whole thing that you have done. You come to file, and when you are going to save it, you have to make sure you're on the last sheet. And then you select save as. So I'm going to put this on my desktop. And then the file extension, you change it to limited text, formatted text, space delimited. This one, formatted text, space delimited. This is how you want to save the file. So you select this, and then we'll call it let's say Maverick. Maverick. Okay. We'll call it Maverick, and then we'll save it on the desktop so that we can easily find it. Now I'm doing this on my physical machine. So it's telling us that the selected format that we want to save it will only allow us to save the current page that we are on. That is all that we need. So we just click OK. And then from here, I can close this. If you ask me to save, I can say don't save. And when I come to my desktop, I should see a very fine file here, this maverick.prn. So what I'll do is I'll copy this and then come to my virtual machine. Let me resume my virtual machine. So I'll come in my virtual machine. Let me close this. Let me have a clean environment. So close this too. And even close the server manager, close the command prompt, and then close this. So what I want to do is I want to paste the file I copied. Why is this thing taking so long? Okay, so we have it here, maverick.prn. So the next thing I want to do is I will right click this, and then I want to rename this. But it is not the name I want to change, it is the extension that I want to change. So I want to change the extension to BAT. So it becomes a batch file. It becomes a batch file. So you can see that the icon has also changed. Now, basically what we have done is that we have created a software that when you execute, it will create usernames in Active Directory, put them in various OUs like that. So when I double click on this, it starts running. And you can see DSR succeeded for each of them. DSR succeeded. So we'll keep going like that. DSR succeeded. So once it's done, it means that we would have created this number of users in our organizational unit. In the various departments like that. Automate the user account creation, we can create multiple users at once. If you have a question, you can ask. If it's anything about altering the Excel, I can't help you. But I think the concatenation is not really a big deal. Like your small Excel skills should allow you to take control of the thing and then program it anyhow that you want to program it. So it's done. So when I open my server manager and then I go to Active Directory users and computers. I go to Active Directory users and computers. And I go to Active Directory users and computers. I should see my users there. So you can see that when I go to finance, these users are there. When I go to HR, the users are there. When I go to IT, the users are there. They are there. So that's how you create the and when you so that's how you automate the user account creation process. Any question?
What was the format again? The Excel format.
Ta, 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 ta. Okay, so the document is formatted text into bracket space delimited. Formatted text into bracket space delimited. Groups, are we okay? Hey, now the screen sharing too is not sharing. Hey,
Lou,
yeah,
can
okay,
you please
I think it's okay now.
the file so we can catch up to that side? We can create.
Um, but you have to get your own names. All right, so I'll just drop it in the group. All right, so back here. So let's talk about groups. Remember, I did mention, or at the beginning, we created another OU called rows. We created another OU called rows, and then I said that the rows represent the The roles represent the various functions within the departments. So at the end of the day, you may have people in the IT department, but then you may have some of them doing different things. Are we okay? So it's the same thing with what we have here. So this also needs to be well planned so that it becomes easy. This will go a long way to help when you want to create folders and then assign permissions to them, and even a whole lot of things that you can achieve with groups. So let's see what groups are. So a group can be defined as a list of users or computer accounts that function as a security principal in much the same way as user does. So basically, when we say a group, even in our lives, when people join groups, it means that they are members of that particular group. And so based on their membership, there are certain things that is expected of them. So some people can like, let's use, for example, the Occupy Ghana, for example. Now, when you say Occupy Ghana, it's a group of people. So when they say that Occupy Ghana is going for demonstration, they are expecting that those who call themselves members of that particular group are going to meet at a particular spot for that particular engagement. So that is how the group also is in Active Directory. So it allows you to do what we call group-based management instead of individual-based management. Now, when we say in the group-based management, what we mean is that if, for example, I need to grant permission to a particular thing for 10 people, if I want to do it individually, it means I have to do one by one until all the 10 people have been assigned. But if I create a group and then I add them to the group, what this means is that if I assign it to the group automatically, all those who are members, see, it's just like our WhatsApp group. Whatever I put in the group, automatically you all see. Unlike so in Windows Server, it logs on to directory. An access token is created to identify the user and all the user's group membership. So the groups that the person is a member of helps to determine the things that the user has access to. All right. So two group classification exists. We have what we call distribution group, and then we have security group. Now, basically, when we say distribution group, this is a group that is non-security related. It's mostly used for distributing information. So I don't know that if, for example, I need to be able to send an email to 100 people at a time. I can create a group and then send them. Cannot assign permissions or rights to a distribution group. You can only use it for information distribution. Then we have the security groups. They are security related for the purpose of granting resource access permission to multiple users. So basically, when you create a group that is a security group, what you are doing is that you use this group to grant users access to resources. So in addition to the security and distribution groups, there are several group scopes that are available within Active Directory. So group scopes are available in an Active Directory domain include domain local. Now, when we say a scope, basically how far can you reach? That is your scope, your coverage can contain, limiting the object to the same domain or permitting objects from remote domains as well, and also controls the location in the domain or forest where the group can be used. So basically, just like the way we're able to add other organizational units to an organizational unit, we can also nest groups. When you add a group to another group, it becomes a nested group. But then you can't just add any group type to another group. The group you can add to another group, we have what we call domain local groups, we have global groups, and then we have universal. So when it comes to groups, um, when we say a domain local group, basically, I don't think these are okay. So when we say, let me explain what these are. When we say a domain local group, the domain local group is a group that is only accessible within the local domain that it has been created in first. Then the global group allows you to access resources in other domains in the forest. And then the universal group goes beyond your forest. So universal group can be members of other groups that are in a different forest. So if you have a different organization and then you have established some of trust relationship with that particular organization, you can allow your universal group to be members of a different organization, a different forest. So basically that is how this is just like our governance system, local governance system. You have a assemblyman in charge of one area. Then you have a DC in charge of multiple assemblies or multiple areas. Is the voice okay? Please, can you hear me?
It's fine on my end though.
It's better now.
Then VJ is your network. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, if you take our local governance, we have the assemblyman who is only a member of one area. Then we have the DC or MC that is in charge of multiple assemblymen. Then you have the minister, the regional minister, who is also in charge of the region, which is made up of multiple districts or municipalities. Then we have the president who is in charge of the entire country. So at the end of the day, the reach of the president is different from the reach of the regional minister. Same with the reach of the MC and same with the reach of the assemblyman. Assemblyman there, is just his area. So you can't go to another area and say I'm the assemblyman of this another area. They won't even mind you, especially Ghana that we don't respect assemblymen like that. So basically that is the group scopes. So there isn't much to talk about groups. Besides that, there are default groups in Active Directory, and I think we've seen them in the built-in container. And then you can also nest groups. Nesting groups means you can add a group to another group. So let's just go straight forward and then look at how to create groups. It's very, very simple, just like all the things that we have done so far. Okay, so we'll be creating the groups in the rows OU. Okay, and again, this thing requires planning. If you don't plan well, you are going to be very, very hot. So I think this one we just use Excel to draft something. Okay, so we have how many departments? 4, right? We have IT, we have HR, we have
Finance
we
and
have
marketing.
finance. And then we have marketing. All right. So under IT, I think under IT we can have cyber. Let's just put cyber under IT. Okay. Even though they won't agree. But let's just put cyber under IT. And we'll put applications, right? Or softwares, apps. We'll put database. And then maybe systems, okay? I wonder if we have enough people to move around like that. And then we have systems. Then when it comes to HR, what do we have? Training. And then maybe we can add staffing. And then what else? Maybe that can be all right. Finance, what can we have? Finance, maybe we can have salary. Let's just, it may not be realistic, but we can have salary. We can have credit.
Salaries.
Okay, so salary is
I use
payroll, right?
payroll. Yeah. Account payables
And then maybe we can have credit.
and receivables.
Then maybe what else? Account.
Use
Let's
account
add account.
payables or account
Let's add account. I think this is
receivables.
okay.
Okay.
Then marketing. I don't know. All right. Then for marketing, what can we have?
Sales.
Sales. We can have branding, right?
Branding.
We can have R&D.
Research and development. Yeah.
Or
Yeah, R&D.
we can have R&D.
Mm.
Yeah, R&D. I think this is enough. Now, so
Yeah.
it means that we are going to create this number of groups. So what we will do is that for each department, there will be a group that will bear the name of the department. So IT will have a group called IT. HR will have a group called HR. Finance will have a group called finance. Marketing will have a group called marketing. Then these other subgroups will also be created. Then we will add all the subgroups under IT to the group called what? IT. So in IT, the cyber people will be members of the cyber department. The application people will be members of the application department. Database will be members of the database department. Systems will be members of the systems department. Then they will all come together under what? IT. They will all come together under IT. The same thing applies to all the rest. This is because we may want to deal with cyber people. When we want to deal with the entire IT department, we'll switch to what? IT. Is it clear? All right. So with that said, we come here. And so the roles in IT, we'll create a group. So this is the icon for group. So we'll create a group and then we'll call it IT. And you notice that when you create a group, we have the group scope and the group type. So it's going to be a security group and it's going to be a global group. So all our groups are going to be global groups. If for any reason we want to make it domain local, based on the reason why we want to, then we can just specify the type. So you notice that those things we talked about, they are just options you select, but you need to know the purpose for which you are selecting any of them. So global will be, it will be global group, and then we'll have a security, there will be a security group also. And this is called IT. So that is how you create a group. It's very simple. Then you come down again, we create cyber. Okay. Then we come down again. The next one would be apps, right? Apps for applications. Then the next one will be what? Database. I think we left out networking by Nyeshi. And then the next one will be systems. So systems can be with networking. So systems. All right, so we have these groups. Straightforward. Now, what we would then do is that you see the groups we've created, we will select all of them. but then we need to take out the IT. And then we will right click on all of them and go to add to a group. So when we go to add to a group, we'll add it to IT, check names. So add it to IT and click OK. So the add to group operation was successfully created. So what it means is that we have nested this group. So basically, we don't need to add the users to IT. We add the individual users to their respective roles. So the system administrator will be part of the systems group. The database person will be part of the database group. The cyber person will be part of the cyber group. But by virtue of the fact that they are members of these individual groups, which are also members of IT, they are all automatically under IT. So whatever is applied to IT will be propagated to the sub groups in IT or the next steps in IT, which will then reflect on the users that are members of those nested groups. So that is how this thing works. So you may not necessarily need to add users to the IT. So when I open IT and I go to members, as you see apps, cyber, database, and what systems, these are the members of IT. So I'll quickly create the other groups and then we'll move on. Once I think that the concept is clear. So since the concept is clear, I just create the other groups. Okay, so that icon I clicked is the icon for add to a group. That's the icon for add to a group. So instead of right clicking them and going to add to a group, you can also just click, once they are selected, you can click on this icon and then they'll be added to the group. So when I go to HR and then I go to members, you can see we have staffing and then we have training. Then we have finance. Hey, okay, so what it means is that we put the IT staff under finance, so we can just move it. So we just drag all of them and put them under the rows here and then say yes. So they are gone. So when it comes to the rows here, they are here. Remove them from finance so we can now create the ones for finance. Okay, so finance, you have payroll, right?
Finance, there's payroll.
And I think I added credit. And then accounts.
I share class for finance.
All right, so we'll just select these, add to a group, and then just type FIN, and then you can click check names, and then it will just populate the finance for you. So when we come here, and then we check members, you can see that the members are there. All right, and then finally, we have marketing. So marketing, we first have marketing. Some administrators may do marketing department, IT department. They can add department to it just to show what it means. It's also allowed. It's your environment. You decide how you want it to be. Then we have, so under marketing, I think we have sales. And then we have R&D. And then we have Brandon. We have Brandon. I think that's it, right? So add these ones to marketing. All right. And you can see that whenever you're adding to a group, it shows you that it brings up group and not the entire group. So the object type is group. So it's not conflicting with the OU. All right, so we click OK. All right, so we have this. So this is also done. So basically that is how you add users to, sorry, you nest a group. So now let's go to adding the users to the groups. So when I come to users here in finance, what I'll do is I'll do them maybe three. I'll do that maybe three. But again, if this is a real life scenario, the roles of the people may have been defined. So you will know who is who. So these people will go to credit. Check names. Okay. And then these people will go to accounts. And then the last set of people will go to we've done credit, we've done accounts, it's left with payroll. All right. Now, one thing about groups is that unlike OUs, that whatever you put in it sits in it, a user can be a member of multiple groups. So you can have somebody who is a member of payroll and then also a member of credit. And this is where careful, because at the end of the day, whatever permission job, the person may end up using the payroll right to do the credit job. So you have to be permissions. So this is done. So let me quickly do that of HR. I think HR, there are only two there, right? Staffing and then. So this will go to staffing. Check names. Okay. And then this will go to training. All right. Then under IT, IT is a lot, but the users are not many. Okay, I think it's quite enough. So these people, they will go to, where will you go to? Cyber. These people will go to apps. Okay. These people will go to systems. If we go to systems, and then this last set of people will go to database. All right. And then the final set, marketing. There are many. So we'll have a lot of people working. So these people will go to Brandon. All right. And then this set of people, they'll go to sales. Okay. And then this last set of people, they will go to, what was the last one? R&D, right? R&D. All right. So at the end of the day, basically, this is how you do it. So once you have this properly planned out, life becomes easier for you as you go along the way. So this is how you plan out your environment. Okay, so we have successfully set up our first domain controller. We have created users, we have created OUs, we have created groups. So I'm going to introduce our second domain controller. So we'll set up our second domain controller, and after setting it up, we'll end the session. God willing, Sunday, we will look at operations masters, and then we'll start with group policies. So we'll introduce our client on Sunday, and then we'll start with group policies. We'll start with group policies, and then we'll look at we'll first do files, sharing of files, permissions, so that we can look at how to share files to users and then all that. And afterwards, before we go to the group policies, after group policies, we talk about DNS, and then the local server will be done. Then we can focus on the cloud and how to bring it all together. All right, so let me switch to my second system. So this is my second system. I'm going to power it on. So the basic things that we did on the first one, I'm going to do the same things here. We are going to set the IP address. After setting up the IP address, we will join it to the domain. We will join it to the domain. And then after joining it to the domain, we will promote it to a domain controller. We'll promote it to a domain controller. And then we will bring the session to an end. I think this is the first time I'm powering it on. After we cloned it, we didn't touch it again. It's the same administrator password that we used for the first one, because I think we created a password before cloning it. So it's the same admin password that we used for the first one. All right. So because of time, I won't install the VMware tools yet, but after I will do the installation, or I should just install it now. Okay, so I can just go to VM, install VMware tools. But I think it will require us to, but we'll finish everything before we restart. Right, so the VMware tools is here, but I want us to finish our configurations before we will touch it. And why is my server manager misbehaving? All right, so I think it's here. So like we did with the first one, what we will do is we will check the IP settings. So come to local server. We've been through this on the first system, so I wouldn't talk much. We'll change the name. We will. Okay, so we have to make the IP address static, like we did with the first one. So I'll come here. Details. Okay, so this one is giving 131, 131, 131. Yeah, hello?
Yeah, Louis.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, please. So, must the IP address always be static?
For a server, yes.
For
For a server,
communication
yes.
support.
The server is supposed to have a static IP address.
For
Let's take
communication
it that you giving the server a DHCP address. You have given the server a DHCP address. You have mapped certain things to the address, how the system reach that server. Kwame, do you get me?
The line was breaking up.
Yeah, well, I was saying that let's say you give the server a DHCP address. Can you hear me now?
It was breaking small.
I need your feedback if you can hear me.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you
Yeah, I
from my
can
end.
hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
All
can
right.
hear you.
So what I'm saying is that if you give the server, a DHCP address, and then the IP address changes over time, and you have mapped certain resources to that particular IP, and the IP on the server changes, how would the systems reach that IP now? You get my point?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the server always has a static IP, and it's actually a recommendation when you are installing roles on the server. If not, all right, so I'm going to change the IP settings, and let's pay attention here. So it will be 192.168.19.131. Then the DHCP. So the gateway is 192.168.19.2. Even though we don't really need the gateway. Are we okay? Now this is where you have to pay attention. Here, you are going to use the IP address of the first server as your DNS, because the first server has a DNS role on it. Are we okay? So you use your first server's IP address as your DNS address. Before, maybe if we wanted to go on the internet, we can add the 192.168.19.2. So we click OK. And then we close. So we may have to give it a little time for it to get used to the new IP, and you see it is back. It has internet access. So it is back, which means that the configuration is okay. The next thing that we want to do is we want to test the connectivity between this and then the first server, whether they can communicate with each other. So we'll open the command prompt, and then we will try to ping the first one. So 192.168.19.128. All right, so we are getting replies from it, which means that they are in connection. The next thing is we want to test whether the DNS is working. So we'll ping Maverick dot local because it is resolve it, and you can see that it was able to resolve the maverick.local to the IP address of the first server, which is on the domain. So basically, it means that we are in business, we are good to go. So we'll change the IP, the name, and then the domain at the same time. So we'll call this one DC2. We'll call this one DC2. So we change the name and the domain at the same time, since they will both require, so we'll call this DC2, and then we'll switch from web group to domain. So we'll enter the domain maverick.local, and then we'll click OK. So if everything is okay, it will prompt us to provide a credential for the domain. Are we okay? So we say administrator, and then the password of the administrator. So this is to ensure that we are authorizing this system in. So it says that the domain join cannot be completed because the SID of the domain you attempted to join was identical to the SID of the, okay. I think I didn't the administrator should be Maverick / administrator and then the password. All right, so okay, I think it's because we cloned it. So the first thing that we have to do is let us first change the name. Okay, let us first change the name, and then let it restart. And then after restarting, then we can come back because we cloned it. So it's seeing it as the same system. All right. Okay. So let's try again, and if the error persists, we try to find a way around it. All right. So let's try again. If the error persists, we'll find a way around it. I'm hoping that this doesn't come again, because it means it will take us on a detour. So we are going to change the work group from Maverick.local. Okay. Okay, so it still says the SID is the same. So what this means is that because we cloned it, it has the same identity as the first server. So we will have to reset the SID of this one using a tool called sysprep, which is already in the Windows. So go to local C. So it means that everyone will have to do this in order not to encounter this error because we cloned the domain controller. Then we'll go to Windows System 32. System 32. And then we'll look for sysprep. Yeah, sysprep. So we just run this and let's hope sysprep runs. So basically, sysprep allows you to allows you to clean up the machine. It allows you to clean up the machine. And so we want to use enter out of box experience. And then we will select the generalized option. We'll select the generalized option and we will allow it to reboot. So I just click OK. So sysprep, when it completes successfully, it will wipe the machine, the ID, and then everything. So those of you that are now going to do it, it means that you have to run this sysprep first before you try to join your domain controller to the domain, the second domain controller to the domain. So let's just give it a little time for sysprep to run. Afterwards, the system will restart and we'll look as if we have just finished the installation and we are doing a new setup or a new configuration. We'll clean the ID and then we'll be good to go. At this point, if you have a question, you can ask.
Louis, question.
Joshua, go ahead.
Okay, so we should have done this before changing the server name from the DC1 to the DC2, right?
I can't hear you. Yeah, we should have done this before doing anything else. Because even if we change the server name and we run the sysprep, it's going to wipe everything that we have done, and I think we'll have to start afresh. So it's better that those of you that are going to do this later. Once you on the second server, you run sysprep. You run sysprep and then clear the SID of the system so that it will become a new system and have its own identity.
Okay, okay. Is it a general thing when you clone any machine, you should do that, or is it just because of this?
I think no, you see when you clone a system, it's like you're taking the identity of the system.
Yeah,
Do you get it?
yeah,
Yeah. Mostly you would want to clone a system because you want to have a copy of it, not to be
Yeah.
used as a different system.
yes, yes.
Do you get my point?
Yeah, I understand you now.
Yeah. So that is the reason why you would want to wipe it clean. And you can actually even use this. Let's say maybe you have a machine you want to sell to someone. You can use this prep to wipe it and then you can just clear and send it to the person. All right.
Please, if you are talking, then we can't hear you.
Hey, all right. So I said that sorry about the inconvenience that was caused, but I think it's a good thing so that in the future, when you find yourself in such a challenging environment, you know exactly what you are supposed to do. So I'm back in and I'm going to quickly do the configurations that I did earlier on. And then we'll just move on like that. So again, this should be the IP address of the first server. And 128. And this one will be 192.168.19.2. All right. So we close. And then we give it a little time for it to settle. Yeah, you are back in business. So the IP configuration is okay. So the next is to change the name and then so this again will be DC2. And I will change the domain to Maverick. Maverick.local. And then we click OK. All right, so add administrator and then password. And then we click OK. So if nothing goes wrong, we should see welcome to the maverick.local domain. Welcome to the maverick.local domain. So when I click OK here, the next is I will be required to restart the system. So it says changing the primary DNS name for this computer field. The name will remain maverick.local. Error was the specified domain either does not exist or could not be contacted. Don't mind them. So we'll just click OK. I think it's because we are changing the name and IP, sorry, and then the domain at the same time. That's why it's caused that. But mostly you would want to first change the computer name before you join it to the domain. But I mean, it's all good. So when this is done, we should be part of the domain. When this is done, we should be part of the domain. All right. So I'm going to go to other user. Okay. And you can see that it says sign into Maverick. And I'll do Maverick /administrator and then the password. All right. So whilst this is loading, let's go to the domain controller and let me show you something. When we come to the DC one, when we come to the DC one and I go to Active Directory and I go to computers, let's refresh this. You can see that DC2 is now listed under the computers. And even though it is a server, because we have not yet made it a domain controller, it is listed under computers automatically once it's joined to the domain. And now what I want us to do is we want to make this server also, the recycle bin is corrupted. Do you want to empty the recycle bin? Yes. We want to also make this server a domain controller. We can actually do that directly from this server here. Are we okay? And to do that, we will first have to add other servers to manage. Add other servers to manage. Remember, I'm on DC1, so I can add other servers to manage. And then I can click DC and then click Find Now. So you can see we have DC1 and DC2. I just have to select this one and then move this here and click OK. And then we just have to give it a little time. And once we give it a little time, it will be auto added. Are we okay? It will be automatically added. So now pay attention to something. You see, when you come to roles, and then the server groups is one. When you come to servers, you now have a total of 2 servers, meaning that we have added another server. And the file and storage service here has also now changed to what? 2. So which means that there is also a second server. So I can now come to all servers. And then you can see that I have this server also here. I have this server also here. So at the end of the day, this is how you can add servers and you can easily know what is happening on one server. So I'll just quickly go to manage, add roles and features. So I'm going to add or make that server also a domain controller. So I'll click next, role based, and you can see that now we have 2 servers listed here. So I can select this particular server that I want to do the installation on the second server and click next. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you can actually manage your servers from one location without having to jump onto each of them. And then I'll just select Active Directory domain services and click add features. Next, 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 and then install. I click next because we have already gone through this installation. And you can see that the destination server is what? dc2.maverick.local. So even though I'm doing the installation on DC1, whatever is happening is actually happening on DC2. So let's give it a little time. The installation will be done. So we've done the installation on DC2 without even jumping onto DC2. Even though when you come here, this is it. This is DC2 and then this is DC1. So the installation will be done in a bit. In fact, I think after this installation, we'll bring the class to a pause. We'll pause the session and then continue on Sunday because I know some people are still sitting in the office waiting for me to finish before they leave the office. So after this, we will pause the class and then promote it to a domain controller on Sunday and then do the rest from there. I think this is okay, right? So you can see that configuration required, installation succeeded on DC2. We have 15 minutes. So let's quickly finish the Active Directory promotion. So I'll say promote this server to a domain controller. And I'm doing all this from DC1. I'm doing all this from DC1. So when you come here, we've gone through this on the first one, but now we are adding a domain controller to an existing domain. So you can see that the domain has been put there. Or we can also say add a new domain to an existing forest. And that one too is there. Are we okay? That one too is there. But then we are not using any of those. So you can actually change to maybe 3 domain and then it will also be there. Are we okay? It will also be there, but we are just adding a domain controller to an existing domain. And so I need to put credentials here. So I'll put administrator. And then his password. and then I'll click OK. And so from here, I'll click next. And if you paid attention to the first one, you remember that the global catalog at first was not compulsory, but now it was compulsory, but now it's not compulsory. You can decide not to make this a global catalog, and you can also decide not to make this also a DNS. So you can decide you don't want it to be a DNS, but we want it to also be a DNS. And you see the site name, because we created HQ Accra. So it's telling us it's going to put this in HQ Accra. If we had created other sites like maybe Kumasi, Tamale, we could have selected any of those locations and we could have just put the server there. So I'm just going to put a password here. Yeah. All right. So the DNS delegation, again, we are not integrating into any other DNS. So we just click next. And now it's asking us, since we are installing a second domain controller, where do we want this domain controller to get its database from? If we have the information on the media, we can select install from a media, but we don't have the information on the media. So we are going to say, we can also say it should replicate from any domain controller. So what this means is that if you are adding a second domain controller, it's not like you are now going to recreate everything that you have already done. It is automatically going to get the information from the first domain controller. So we say it should replicate from any domain controller, but we can be specific and say it should replicate from DC1. That one too can be done. So we just leave it on any domain controller and then we'll click next. So it shows us the locations where the files are going to be stored. Again, we've been through this. And so we'll click next. And then it gives us a review of everything. We'll click next, and then it will do a prerequisite check to see whether this system meets the requirement to become a domain controller. Meets the requirement to become a domain controller. All right, so it says all prerequisite checks passed successfully. But then it is prompting us of something. And so we'll talk about this. It is telling us that the domain controller that hosts the infrastructure master role. So I'll discuss operations masters and then explain what this particular message we are seeing here means. So we'll just go straight forward and then click install. All right, so when this is done, automatically our server is also going to become a domain controller. Our server is going to become a domain controller. Our server is going to become a domain controller. Let's give it a little time to finish installing. Okay, so it's done. So it says the server was successfully configured as a domain controller. So if I switch to DC2, you notice that it is restarting because after the server becomes a domain controller, it has to be restarted. After the server becomes a domain controller, it has to be restarted. So once it's done restarting, we will notice that yes, everything that we have on the first server is on the second server. So let's just let it restart. We log in and then we can end the session. If you have a question, you can ask. Baby, 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 feels it. I'll be my city dancer. You feel better, so you see. Well enough to play with me, baby. Hey, I'm not muted.
Can hear you very well.
Others are singing.
Singing lullaby to your little baby.
All right, so it's done. So let me log in. And notice that now, because it is a domain controller, I don't have to go to other user. Automatically, it picks Maverick /administrator. So I'll just enter my password. And then we are in. All right. So now we are on DC2. You can see we have all the Active Directory tools here. We have all the Active Directory tools here. And then when I go to Active Directory users and computers, also, you will realize that we have the domain there and everything in the domain there. So you can see we have maverick.local. So when I drop down, we have finance, we have HR, we have IT, we have marketing. When you expand them, they are there like that. You can see that they are there just like that. Yeah. You have the roles, everything is there. The users too are there. So what it means is that if one of the servers is down, the other server will be able to take over. The other server will be able to take over. So on this note, we will end the session here. God willing, Sunday, we'll pick up from here.
Thank you, Lou.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks very much.
God bless you.
Thanks for your time.
God bless you.
All right, guys. Safe.